Hey everyone! Welcome back to another episode of I Am Powerful Movement. My name is Janice, and I have this special lady here who's returning to talk to us about narcissistic abuse. Her name is Christy Barker. Welcome back, Christy.
Hi, Janice. Thank you for asking me back. And if you and I both, with our sharing, if we can help some people, it would really make us feel really good. So I'm happy to be back. Thank you.
Yay! Before we get into that very important topics, I'm going to go over what the I Am Powerful movement is all about. It's about giving every individual, we have the power within ourselves through our triumph of stories and true teller, things like that. So here's a little poem for I Am Powerful movement. Let me take you to a place of inspiration where empowerment meets transformation. It's the I Am Powerful movement on YouTube, they recite, spreading positivity, changing lives worldwide. From emotional, motivational speeches of stories of triumph, this channel's beacon helping us all kind. They encourage us to embrace our inner strength, to believe in ourselves, go to any length. I Am Powerful movement, hear the call. On YouTube, they stand, inspiring one and all. From words of wisdom to moments of reflection, they ignite our spirit, sparking self affection. Through their videos, they lift and empower, teaching us resilience hour after hour. With captivating stories, they break through the noise, freeing our passions, reminding us of our choice. Sharing, they share insights, uncovering our potentials, guiding us on a path that's truly essential. From self love to personal growth, they're here to guide. The I Am Powerful movement, changing lives worldwide. So, yay! I'm so glad you're back, Christy. How have you been doing? What have you been up to? And please let us know.
Well, just kind of the usual. Oh, well, I had something interesting happen. I had a cat bite me in the neighborhood, so I couldn't dance. Which I took care of my foot. It was okay, but I laughed because last time I was on your podcast, I was saying, "Oh, I dance all the time," and then I had to take care of myself. So lesson learned. But I'm doing just fine. I've been busy and just enjoying life and recovering from that, and I'm fine. So thank you for asking.
Of course, and we're just all surviving this heat from the summer
Yeah,
right now.
yeah.
Uh,
It's summer continues. Yeah.
Definitely. And speaking of heat, we sometimes have to dodge the bullet of the choices and the people that we meet in our lives. And so I just want to jump on to how to spot a narcissistic personality. Because coming from, maybe obviously you all heard of like narcissistic sometimes stem from a family, right? From your parents or somebody who raised you. But what if there's, certain people like myself, I never came across anyone like that extreme. But as I've learned more about narcissistic personality, I think everyone has a little bit everything of that. Some are more than others. But yeah, let's talk about how to spot different type of narcissistic personalities out there. And which is by the way, this is a very hot topic lately. I've been hearing ever since 2020 lockdown, people have been kind of entrapped with their either family and friends for a long period of time. So the personality you can't mask for that long. Eventually the mask will fall off, and a lot of these people start realizing like, wow, that's not who I thought I fell in love with, or so and so. So yeah, let's go into it.
Yeah, and I think you know this, but I'll just say for your audience too. And I know this, I'm speaking for you too. We're people who are doing the best we can in our lives, and we're not therapists or psychiatrists or psychologists, but we're just going to discuss what we've experienced and how we've risen above to the best of our ability. And I want to talk about what you mentioned. I think there's a spectrum with narcissism. narcissistic pardon me, behavior. I think there's a spectrum. And I have a background in the performing arts, and I knew people who liked to be the center of attention but weren't abusive. They were just people who liked to be on the stage, liked, wanted to be a star, but maybe they had really good hearts. So they could be people who, might be a bit narcissistic, but there's a spectrum, and as you go up the scale of narcissistic abusive people or entities, that would be more as if they always have to be the center of attention, no matter what, no matter who they hurt. And we're talking about all kinds of abuse. They're pathological liars, and it's a big extreme. And they might not have an okay heart like some people who just like to be on the stage. So in my life as a performer, I've encountered different levels on the spectrum, if that makes sense to your viewers.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, spectrum, you can just scale it from 0 to 10.
Yeah.
10 being very, and I've also read about and stumbled upon many videos talking about different type of narcissistic personality, such as covert personality, the grandiose personality, the what you call it? Like I mean, obviously you can look into videos of really those right topics. So from what I've experienced in my past experience with meeting people who are in that spectrum, you can say, they tend to gaslight you a lot. A lot of time when you point out their abuse or something that you don't like what they do, and they tend to go like, oh, what's your problem? I'm just joking. Sometime behind the joke is really the truth. But they, in the way they gaslight you to think like you're the problem. You can't keep up with like, it's just words, words don't have power. You're just too taking it too seriously. It's just a joke. And they keep doing it over and over again where they literally nitpicking you like, hey, are you gonna fight me? They just want to create drama. That's the whole point. What do you think about gaslighting and manipulators?
For sure. Yeah. Exactly. And you mentioned, we've talked about how important words are. So if they're gaslighting you, I mean, words are really important. Words are loaded. They can be loaded for positive or for negative. And well, with the experience with, I know it's a huge story and I won't go into all the details, but with my dad, and he had married a narcissistic abusive entity. And, an example of gaslighting would be how she had been doing all this stuff with his money and his will and his trust. And I caught her, and she basically accused me in front of some people of just being after my dad's money when that's what she was doing. So that's an example of gaslighting, is throwing it on you, deflecting, telling you that you're doing what they're doing. And, it's just, yeah, that's definitely something. And words are very powerful for sure.
Yes. So that is the one common trait. So they will not take responsibility. That's number one to look out for. Red flag. Anyone you meet, whether it's a romantic relationship, friendship, or even people within your family, these are the easy way to spot. They will not take responsibility. They always blame something, someone, environment, circumstances for their action. No, I didn't do it. Because they did it. And it's very bluntly, even if you call out for it, they're like, no, no, no. And then they just kind of like change another subject if they can't defend themselves, in other words.
Yeah.
And let's talk about masking. So narcissistic people, they tend to have this mask on, especially when you first meet them. And you heard of trauma bonds. Yeah, let's talk about that, the mask.
Well, yeah, I mean, they often look really good, right? They often know what to say. They often, in the Bible, they talk about a wolf in sheep's clothing. So to the other sheep, the wolf in sheep's clothing looks like a sheep, and innocent like they are. They don't see it as a wolf. So it can be tricky at first when you come across a narcissistic personality. I had a boyfriend years ago who actually became a fiance, but I called off the wedding, and he did all the right things. You know, he always opened the door for me getting into the car. We went out to dinner all the time. He listened to love songs on the radio. And at the time, I thought, well, he's great because he did all the right things. But as we got further into the relationship, I could see it was all about him. It was all about image. It was all about, it was a superficial behavior. And also the woman who married my dad, she was somebody who donated to charity. She made herself look really good. And, they do things. And that's the tricky part. It can be difficult to spot them at first because they might be a very attractive person who's doing all the right things. Now, the person I called off the engagement with, prior to that, I had a boyfriend who had a drinking problem. So for me to go to this guy who didn't drink, but did all the right things, I was really kind of taken in by that. But I realized that he had a different kind. I went from one problem to a different problem. So that's what's tricky, is we have to learn how to, and only sometimes it's experience, but we really have to figure out how to spot these personalities. So sometimes when they do all the right things and they look really good, you just kind of have to also trust your instinct and trust your feelings with them too. For sure.
Yeah, definitely. During my darkest time, thank you for sharing that story, by the way. We all met somebody, especially,
Yeah.
you notice Christy is always someone close to you, because if you think about it, you will never really truly know a person until you are like either live with them romantically, in link a relationship with them, travel with them, and have any financial ties. That's when the true nature of their true character comes out eventually, right? That's part of the masking. And I remember during my darkest time of losing my mom, I met a gentleman who says all the right things. And even this is what they call love bombing. So take notes, people. Love bombing, it's just basically they're saying all the right word. You're my soulmate. You're the one for me. Very fast-paced relationship, and I wasn't even ready to be in a relationship at the time, but looking back, because of my wounds, or the time I was grieving the loss of my mother, I was acceptable to anything, any love. And that's really normal for any human being out there. So again, narcissistic personality, they know you are in pain. They know you are an empath, so that's why they target you. Literally, they are smarter. They're con artists. In other words, we have spoken about con artists. What they do is they study you to the T, what you like, what you don't like, even though the stuff that they don't like, but they're gonna pretend like, oh my God, I like that too. Oh my God, I'm into that. You're my soulmate. I have search and search all over the world, and I never connect with anyone but you. And they just make so like, oh, I'm so special. And then eventually, like I said, they'll make you fall in love. They have to have this emotional bond, and where they can control. Let's talk about control. This is where like they once they reel you in with all this good things, glamour, say the all right things, yeah, let's talk about the control. How which type of control have you experienced that you noticed in your heart was like, this is weird. I don't feel like myself. Yeah.
Right. I think control is exactly the right word, Janice, because it's like it never ends for them. It's never enough for them. They want more and more from you. They want more and more attention. They want more and more affection. They need more and more energy from you, like an energy vampire, which I didn't trade, Dr. Christian Northrup will talk about energy vampires, and that's what they are. They need more and more for you. So that's kind of maybe a second warning sign. If someone looks really good and is all this, but then it's never enough for them. It's a never ending quest for more of your energy. And as empaths, we have to really set boundaries and do our best to recognize this personality, because they are vampiric. And I had a little bit of a glitch. I don't know if it was me, but is my internet okay?
Yeah, everything's good.
Okay.
See, the worst prison in the world is a home without peace. Be careful who you marry or who you fall in love with. And as we talk, as you just talk about, it's the control, right?
Mhm.
Um, Control of your mind. Someone said this, and I thought I laughed at it, but at the same time, sounds so true. To survive a narcissistic abuse is almost like escaping the matrix.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, you are
Yeah.
living in the matrix with these people. They literally will prison you
Mhm.
in their own little cage where I'm in control of who you talk to, who you're friend with, when you're gonna be out. I gotta know all the little things. But when it comes to them, um, they have all the authority. They're allowed to cheat. They're allowed to lie, and they just gonna gaslight and blame it on you and go, "You're the problem. Why are you having such a big deal about the little things?" About that. Yeah, what do you think about escaping the matrix theory?
Gosh, yeah. I mean, when you mentioned the Matrix, I think about that awful scene where all those babies are, they're feeding a battery. And that's what it is for them, because they need other living things for energy. They're not making it their own. They're not generating it. So they need it from other entities. And like I said, it's, we have to learn to recognize it and set our boundaries and say no. And because as an empath, we will give and give and give. And you were very vulnerable when your mother passed. And I was vulnerable when I met that gentleman who I was engaged to briefly. And when my dad married the entity that he married, he was very vulnerable too. So, and I know you and I like to talk about self-esteem and taking care of our thoughts and taking care of ourselves. So that's when that will come into play, because we don't want to, as empaths, need everybody to like us, because that was part of me, is I needed everyone to like me. And when
Oh,
you need
true.
everyone to like you, I needed approval from other people. They love that, because then they got you, because you need their.
Speaking of Exactly. Speaking of approval and pleasing others, I think it's part of our trauma, maybe growing up, that something that we're lack of from our own peers or parents growing up that we didn't give. So therefore we grow up to try to, be everyone's savior. That's how, well, especially for me. I mean, I can say because I remember I just have to growing up, I always feel like if I love you more, it will be better. Like things will change and things like that. So when I happened to be in this type of narcissistic abuse relationship, I remember telling myself, hey, if I love that person more, they will change. I believe in them. They will change. Let me love you more. Okay, I forgive you. And then once it gets to the pattern where you're like, man, I'm just fooling myself at this point, and this person ain't never gonna change. It's just like, having a carrot, like,
Yeah.
oh, keep going, and you're eventually digging yourself a hole. In other words, yeah,
Yeah.
talking definitely. You cannot love others and expect, because the change needs to come from them.
Mhm. Yeah.
And let's talk about real quick. Do you think most of narcissistic abuse or personality, I mean, comes from childhood? Like no one's born this way, right? I don't believe that. Like because if you think about every child come into this world, they're naturally born with so much happiness. It's just because they're around the wrong people, the wrong influence. What do you think about that?
I think there's definitely some truth to that. I feel like at some point, though, it needs to stop, and we need to call it out, because if we don't, or we set our boundaries, because then it will continue through the family line while we're, on Earth, I guess. This never ending, this potentially evil personality type will continue to go on. So at some point, we need to stop it too. So I don't necessarily think that these people, they might have been innocent at some point, but they're not once they abuse me or my friends or my family, And so at some point, though, it does need to stop. So, for example, I've no doubt the woman who was abusive to my dad probably had some stuff traumatic that happened in her childhood, but it's her responsibility to heal that. It's not, she can't just keep siphoning off other people. We all have to take responsibility. And as you pointed out, this personality type doesn't always like to take personality. In fact, they hardly ever want to take responsibility. In fact, they don't. So, but it has to be owned, and so I'm sure some terrible things happened to these people when they were little, and that's too bad. But terrible things have happened to us as well, and we've dealt with it and we've healed it to the best of our abilities. So I don't know. I think that everyone.
Did you mention the stepmom has a daughter who is just like her?
Yeah.
So do you think it stems from her narcissistic abuse?
Yeah, for sure. Although she was different. And again, I'm not a psychiatrist, psychologist.
Yeah, we're just speculating. Yes.
We're just talking. The daughter didn't need to be the center of attention. The wife did. So the daughter liked to be secretive and liked to hide in the shadows. So she was almost more sneaky than the mother. The mother was very obvious. It was kind of like, so I'm a Star Wars nerd. And for mostly the Star Wars movies at the beginning, it was like as if the wife of my father was Darth Vader, which is like the obvious bad guy, right? Darth Vader's, did some terrible things, right? But you find out at the end of Return of the Jedi that maybe he had some heart. He did the right thing for his son, for Luke, the best he could. But the daughter would be more like the Emperor or Senator Palpatine, puppeting Darth Vader. And again, Darth Vader's no angel. But and then, of course, I'm a combination of Han Solo and Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker in my own Star Wars fantasy. But that's my best way to explain it. So I think perhaps the daughter might have been more like a sociopath or a psychopath. She didn't have the need to be the center of attention, but she had the need to be in control. So that's it's a little harder to spot that one, I think, too.
Yeah. I mean, again, we're not saying we're experts,
No.
but it kind of, the more I read into everything comes from everything that we are today in a way is confirming our unhealed trauma wounds, in other words. So I read that. I'm not saying this is an excuse for them to be toxic to others. I'm just saying, just a stem of it. We're just gonna go briefly touch on this, but I came across this video and it's pretty profounding from the psychiatrist. I forgot her name, but she mentioned something about, at certain point in a child's life, right? There's some type of trauma. Doesn't have to be physical. It could be an everyday type of thing. But then something triggered in their mind and they said that, you know what, I don't want to, because you heard of the fight or flight mentality. In this moment, a child will say, I will never want to feel this way again. So they either stop growing emotionally at that age, where they're like, I don't like this feeling. I will never, ever let anyone do this again to me. I will never want to feel this way. So I'm just going to rub off whatever guilt and shame I have upon myself to others so I can make myself feel good. So starting then, they probably, through, teenage years, blah, 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 going up, they probably have this habitual doing, because everything we do is really a habit of our own way of thinking, right? Like once you think of something, right, and then you become like, I'm gonna make it a habit, so I keep doing it and doing it, and it becomes normal. You feel like, okay, this is me, and then it's all like the body remember this pain that we have. It's like pain body. You heard of that term? Yeah. And so we pretty much throughout our life, these children will grow up reliving these pain body, and then at the same time they're protecting themselves from flight or fight mentality, where nothing, like they feel entitled. They feel like everything's about them, and egotistic, they just do things that is just crazy. And even the sad part, Christy, I have come across family member who came, who are with this type of individuals who have children with them, and
Yeah.
it's sad to say, but you heard of this, but they don't look at their own children as anything. Like typically w- uh, you're growing, right? You want to be a good parent, but for these type of narcissistic personality, they look at children as more of a control aspect.
Oh,
Like, how
yeah.
can I manipulate? Or they even look at their children as a jealousy. Like, I want to I want to create chaos in you, so you won't compete with me, or I'm the authority. It's kind of crazy. Like, yeah, have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, right. What comes to me too is almost like a toxic, narcissistic, abusive mother might treat the children like accessories, or fashion.
Mm,
Makes them
yes.
good and give them importance, and not as these beautiful living beings that need her guidance or his guidance. And yeah, and that's why it's important. I think what you've done with your daughters that you spoke of on my YouTube channel, of the affirmations and doing your best to mother them the way that you would want to be mothered, and giving them that opportunity to say their affirmations and all that. It's the opposite of what those entities do, because words are so important. you know
Yeah, and definitely words do have power. And I think um people chill let me read this quote, but I just want to share this, and it kind of goes with what we just said. Children of highly narcissistic parents who don't become extreme narcissists themselves, but become highly sensitive,
Mhm.
honest, and intuitive are some of the strongest people to walk on this earth.
Mhm.
Their entire life is often devoted to healing wounds they never asked for.
Mhm.
I truly believe that. At some point, yes, it'll break a child in a way, where they come from this type of negative, toxic family. But as you know, some of these people are the strongest, as you talk to them, they're so wise beyond their age, and they actually don't want others to go through that. So I've noticed a lot of them start their own podcasts, or they themselves have narcissistic character um personality, and they just want to spread the message. There was these two gentlemen. They're very popular on YouTube. They themselves diagnosed themselves as narcissistic personality, and
Really?
now they have a big follower, um, to point out about everything that what they can go through. I think it's so great. We're sharing information about these how to spot these
Yeah.
negative things.
Yeah, and I think, well, that sounds very interesting, because it sounds like they're owning up to that and taking responsibility, because I think that's the first step. If that um, narcissistic personality realizes that things aren't going well in their life and that they need to make changes, I think the first responsibility for all of us, the first thing is to accept responsibility and to recognize it. And that would start the snowball effect of healing from it too. Yeah.
So, as we talk about the childhood, um, how so let's talk about once you recognize something is wrong, like the red flag, like doesn't feel right. I shouldn't be treated like that. And a lot of time, with the aging narcissist is like once they face a crisis, they realize their scam doesn't work effect it
Yeah.
isn't effective anymore. At some point, you know, I don't you think at some I'm sure you come across this scenario, Christy. For me, it was more like, do these people ever face their karma for
Yeah.
what they've done?
Right.
Because we know for a fact they are very aware of what they do to you or what they done to others. The abuse, the gaslighting, the cheating, the manipulation. Yeah, what do you think about the karmatic type of uh, energies that they
Well,
put?
Yeah, what goes around comes around. I think that, and I'm not perfect, and you're perfect though, right, Janice? You're perfect.
No, never.
Because of course, it would feel good to have some sort of revenge at your own hands, that you show them, we want that to happen. But very often the way that God works, I believe, is that it is taken care of through karma. It's not ours to do. And it's best for us to heal by walking away from the situation and healing ourselves and allowing God to take care of the vengeance part. Vengeance is mine, is in the Bible as well. So we just might not see it. We with my situation with, it was, the crazy story with my dad, that whole thing with the lawsuit. I wanted to be in court. I wanted to be in front of a judge and have her be, shamed in front of a jury. And I wanted this big thing, but that didn't happen. It was best for me to settle and just trust that everything is working out in divine order. It's better use of my energy, which I think you brought up in one of our other podcasts too, that at some point we have to put our energy into something else and not the drama of that situation. And ideally we would want to put it into our healing or having loving friendships and conversations and being in a supportive environment. Because if we I think that these personality types often move on. They move on to other victims. They might not be obsessed with us. Maybe some might, but once they realize they can't get that energy from you, they move on. And in fact, the guy that I almost married, called off the engagement from, because he was one of these personality types. He got married soon after that. Like he moved on to someone else that he could vampire off of. But we're left like, what just happened? This crazy thing just happened, all this drama. And we need to learn, and this is our challenge, is to let it go for us. Like we have to forgive the situation for us so that we can have better things come into our life. We don't want to obsess about what happened. We have to deal with it, express our anger in a safe environment, or do whatever we can. But I think they move on. I think they move on to get other energy from other places. And that's what I've had to do, is like, I can't think about it all the time. I can't talk about it all the time. I have to move on. And so that's been my challenge too. But I think they move on to other.
Because one of the common traits of these narcissistic people, they are, they have to have need supply. They're codependency. They cannot be by themselves. Never. That is why excuse me. Well, number one thing is they love to cheat, because they have to have someone back up in case of this one doesn't work,
Yeah, narcissistic supply. I've heard it called narcissistic supply. Yeah.
So yeah, it's about control, and a lot of time they'll even keep your number, Christy, and maybe like they'll pretend to check up on you, thinking, "Oh, can I go back to her?" It's a way of like, "Oh, if she even pick up my phone call, that validate that, oh, she still care about me," because they have it in their head where like, "Oh my God, I'm God in her life," or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be like the other victim they moved on to wasn't giving them what they needed. So yeah, they have to go back in their phone and yeah. So, but once they get what they need from some other victim, then they, that's where they get the energy. But you're right. They might be like, oh, I'm not, this person figured out that I'm a narcissistic, crazy person. And let me go back to the person who was giving and empathetic, that could happen too.
By the way, this is for men and women who can be narcissistic, and we're not talking about, because we, obviously for us, we came across that are male figure, but both genders.
Yeah. Well, my dad's spouse, that was a woman. It was dad had a narcissistic abusive wife. So yeah, it's non-gender specific for sure.
And speaking of this thing where I came across this video, and it almost feel like these people are placed in our lives it's almost like a lesson. You heard of some people comes in your life through either is a lesson or a blessing.
Yeah.
And it's truly a lesson. The reason why I say this, because a lot of time, if you think about it, you come across a person, right? And you treat them so poorly over and over again. And this person still takes it and still forgiving you, still takes you back and go, I still love you. They're gonna go in their mind and they're like, dude, what's wrong with this person? Wow, they're so weak-minded. Okay, I'm gonna have a ball with this person. I'm just gonna keep abusing them, take whatever I need, until it's almost feel like they're challenging you to, hey, you just need to stand up for yourself, have some respect, stand your ground. And then part that it's a whirlwind type of thing where they put you in this type of chaos, this matrix, right? For
Whoa.
you to like realize enough is enough. I'm going to stand up for myself. And part of the healing is truly walk away. That's it. You just drop. That's what they say. No contact is such a powerful thing. It's like delete their number. They're going to call you through other numbers. They're going to try to reach out to you. They're predators.
Yeah.
So they'll find ways to reach out to you, but it's your way to go block, 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 block at every chance. And that's how you rise up. And then once you realize you're like, oh my god, when you tell another person how much damage or how badly you're treated, you realize that, wow, I got myself out of a hellhole right there. It's
Yeah.
truly what you tell your story to others that you realize that you were in something bad. Yep.
Yeah, because often when you're in it, you might not realize it. Like I think you mentioned, you might be caught up in the drama of how it looks. Like I said, for that person I almost married, it was oh, all these romantic dates and stuff like that. And then with my dad and who he married, it was like all this traveling and all this people. It's like they also create all this drama, and it's kind of a distraction. It kind of just can distract the person they're trying to siphon the energy off of, because there's oh, but look at all these shiny objects. They try to do all these things, but uh, I just want to state that they often mistake being kind as a weakness. When you're kind to these kinds of personalities, they see you as being weak. And maybe, to be fair, maybe I had to learn to be stronger, like you said. But kindness is not the same as weakness. Kindness is kind. Kind is a good thing. And it doesn't mean that you're not strong. And so that's what we have to find, is our own inner strength to stand up, set boundaries, and exit the situation, get these people out of our lives, and focus on ourselves and healing and taking back our life, taking back that energy. They talk about people that I admire have talked about cutting cords. Have you heard that before, Janice? Like cutting like an umbilical cord, as a mother, and you want to cut those cords so that they're not taking anything from you, your energy, your time, and all that. So, but kindness is not weakness. Kind people, it takes strength to be kind. It takes strength to be a good person. And that's where they make a mistake. So
It's almost like if you're a good person, you're always gonna be a good person no matter what. Like, yeah, it might challenge you to think about, oh my god, what I've been through, but at the same time you realize that you just put it on to you just what you call it, put your kindness onto the wrong person. That's it.
yeah.
But a lot of time people love more when they've been in this type of abusive relationship, or scenario where they just like, you know what, I'm gonna love more, love more on myself. And that's the first key word too. Like, I think, like, again, we said, words and wishful thinking is very powerful, right? We don't want to wish for like, oh, death or anything like that, because anything negative will come back to you. At least in my experience, I believe that. So anybody that you truly hurt you should always like try to say, hey, I wish you healing, I wish you peace, I wish you find where you need to be. That's it. Simple as that, if they ever come across your mind. Because obviously these people are really, really deeply hurt. They're
Yeah.
like tormented inside. I can't imagine a lot of time when you're truly an empath, You feel sorry for people who have hurt you because you understand the psychology of what they've gone through or
Yeah.
what they really like bottle up inside. Like, how can you hurt somebody? You must be so broken inside where you have to tear people's in pieces. And as you heard, Tristy, hurt people hurt other people.
Mhm.
When you're good, when you're happy with yourself, like truly happy, you're
Yeah.
going to be happy for others and you treat others with respect and kindness. And
Yeah.
it's all about reflection. It comes down to the end of the day, right? Like you can't take anything personally because everything people do is truly a projection of their inner feelings.
Yeah. And those people, those entities, those people, they're not joyful. They're not happy. Often they don't have a genuine sense of humor. They don't have a good life. That's why they need it from others. So you're right. And that, of course, we need to forgive them and that's our work. That's our work to let it go. And it's not an easy path. And it's not been easy for me at all either. But the karmic aspect of what goes around comes around. It's not our responsibility. We have to learn to let it go and do our own healing. And by doing that, we would be less likely to attract those personalities in the future because they can kind of tell, like, once you have been working on your self-esteem and getting things going in a really healing manner, they almost don't even see you, which is a good thing. They are attracted to a different type of person. So that's why it's always important to take care of ourselves and set boundaries, self-care as much as we can, because we want to attract nice people. We want to attract good people who are joyful and kind and full of creativity. And I like humor, so yeah.
It's great that you said that. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Be the energy you want to attract.
Yeah.
It's purely and simple. That again, you mentioned they're the energy vampires, so they literally feed off your energy. Who are people who are good and kind. So
Yeah,
um,
and in the lore of vampires, with vampires, you have to invite them in, so they kind of wait for you, and so then it kind of gives them free reign. So you want to not invite them in, and again, it's easier to recognize, and they're less attracted to people who have higher self-esteems, and that's what I know you and I are on an ongoing process of doing the best we can to heal,
yeah, definitely. Here's a list of things to find that the real healing begins when you don't care if everyone likes you. You
Mhm.
have to drop about all that people pleasing because the more important thing is you gotta like yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then take responsibility instead of blaming others. So
Mhm.
take responsibility as like, you know what? I forgive myself for not knowing that I was in an abusive relationship or someone took advantage of me. You have to forgive yourself in order to move on. This forgiveness has nothing to do with them or
Mhm.
their abusiveness. It's about you moving on. Like, hey, I'm sorry, I was in a vulnerable place. Someone took advantage of me, and that's okay. I learned from it. I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna have a um, great tribe moving forward.
And you're not alone because there's people like you who are creating podcasts in order to help and to help people know that there are other people, that there's support and there are things that you can do, and that you're not alone in it. So I think most
Yeah,
people who are good-hearted have come across this kind of stuff. So
and honestly, Christy and I, spoke from my experience. But I think for anyone who's watching who knows somebody, all you have to do is just share the video, or or say hey, or if you notice somebody who's in that and you don't want to, put poke into their personality, private life, right? You can go, hey, I care about you, but that person shouldn't treat you that way. Simple as that. You don't have to butt in their private um the conversation or anything, but at the same time, just um but I think at some point, I think everyone who's been through this type of toxic environment in some point, I don't you find it, Christy? At some point, you just and you know in your heart, you're like, I want better for myself. It's
Yeah.
like kind of like an internal wake up call, right? Like something, maybe a I don't know, like it has to take a repeated lesson over and over, as the universe says that um until you learn the lesson, then I'll stop giving you the wrong people, the wrong circumstances for you to wake up.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's the same repeated cycle. It's so true. I mean,
Yeah.
this goes for everyone. I don't care if you're a good person or bad person, but sometime internally, something about us that we haven't noticed about our, inner wounds or healing, we're gonna keep repeating the same people, the same cycle, right? Don't you think?
I think so. And I want to go back to something you said too about, if we see someone, and it's kind of a tricky subject, but if we see someone we love, like a sister, brother, friend, who's in a relationship with someone like that, do we say something? I'm questioning that because my mom, she did not like the guy that I was going to marry, that person I was engaged to. And at that time in my life, I'm like, I don't care what people think. I love him. But in retrospect, it does, people like my mom, who's not alive anymore, close friends, I want them to like who I am choosing to be with. And I never said so much with my dad until it was almost too late. So it's kind of tricky sometimes when you see someone going through that with that kind of narcissistic abusive personality, because my dad was an adult, but you just, I don't know, hindsight being 2020, for me, the next guy that I'm with, that I want to spend my life with, it would matter to me how my good friends and my family feel about him, because often they might sense something that you don't sense because you're so in the distraction of it all. You're kind of rose-colored glasses. So
Mhm.
it's kind of tricky when you are the outsider and you see someone you love who's in a relationship with somebody who could be potentially narcissistic abusive. But in retrospect, I now feel like it does matter to me what my friends and family think of whoever I might want to be spending my life with. So I wish my dad had asked me point blank how I felt about this woman, but oh well, we did the best we could to protect him. And so,
There's this psychiatrist about dating.
yeah.
He said straightforward. You want to not waste your time? Or let's say you met somebody new, right? Within that month, try to have him or her meet your friends and family. They will spot on, and just don't take anything personally, as they say, because they will energetically, like you said, sense this person is like genuinely good or bad, and they'll tell you. So that's how you weave out the bad one, because yeah, like when we're first in the honeymoon phase, that's what they call. You're literally blinded by all this red flags, you can say, but someone else might spot it.
Mhm.
It's so true. Like, I think that's a really very smart way to do it. Just have your family and friends be the detective.
Yeah. Yeah. Lesson learned for me. So, and a lot of, with my dad's situations, many of his friends did not care for her, but I think we all wanted to support him. And he had been so sad before with my mom dying. So it's just this tricky situation. But like I said, for me, it is really important to me how my friends and family feel about someone that I'm going to make a big commitment to now, not when I was engaged to that.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I don't.
I just want to, yeah, I just want to also make a quick note about one of the common traits of narcissistic personality or abuse is that they will try to isolate you
Oh
away
yeah.
from your family and friends. They just want you to yourself, to themselves. I mean, and like really, that's about controlling. And they'll maybe talk trash about somebody that your loved one, and you're like, what? It's like it's in other words, it's called smear campaign. They'll talk trash about your own family while they're with you, while you're with them, and then they'll talk trash about you after you broke up with them.
Yeah.
They'll come up with all sort of like fake thing. He's and she's a blah blah blah, really negative things about you. And this is part of the smear campaign, because again, it's about their ego. They want to be protecting themselves. I'm the good person. Victim,
So
victim. If they play the victim, that's a red flag right there. Oh,
exactly.
I'm so good. How come my children get taken away? Oh, how come that person treat me badly? It's always They're telling you the truth. They're the one treating that person badly, but they're just reversing the storyline. Yep.
Yeah, it's the gaslighting that you brought up at the beginning of our conversation. It brings us back to gaslighting. And yeah,
Yes.
it's they're the victim, yeah. So
Yep.
I hope we
Another
can.
thing is another point taking for true healing is when you push yourself to do what is uncomfortable. You gotta get yourself outside the uncomfortable zone. What you keep doing doesn't work, so you gotta find other ways, right? Out of habit. Just like the Albert Einstein said, you can't expect another result if you keep repeating the cycle.
Yeah, it's something about being insane. What is it?
Yeah,
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 insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
exactly.
so true. It's so true. Um, I know we talked about this on my podcast, but just for the audience of yours here, we both have had a lot of healing with Louise Hay. She's
Mhm.
great. She healed from really, really a traumatic childhood. And also Marissa Peer. It's about self-talk. So those are things that I think can help people if you're realizing that you're in a relationship with someone or you've been in a relationship with these kinds of entities and you keep attracting these entities. And those, especially Louise Hay, but also Marissa Peer, have been really helpful for me to help me with my own self-talk. Yeah. Those
It all
affirmations.
comes down to self-love,
Yeah.
because a lot of these time, if you think about it, this whole society is meant to make us hate ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, Unfortunately, it's the truth. That's why we have such low for self-esteem, and it comes down to the words you say to yourself, and that's why the whole I am affirmation start with that. It's truly a first step to healing, is that you got to say I look at yourself in the mirror and face yourself and say I love you, I forgive you, I am love, I'm lovable, I'm happy, I'm peaceful, things
And
like that.
your specific affirmation for your podcast, I am powerful. I am powerful. Saying that over and over again can help someone who feels victimized and broken from these kinds of relationships, saying that over and over again, or the other affirmations that you just suggested, because powerful people aren't victims. They won't attract these kinds of entities because and you're not looking for external sources for affirmative words too. You're giving it to yourself. So that's such a great affirmation as well, Janice. I am powerful.
And Christy, as I'm learning about the I am affirmation,
Yeah.
I came across many videos that talk about the seven chakras, right?
Mhm.
The the root chakras, the crown chakra, heart, and things like that. So, did you know I am affirmation comes down from the root chakra? So
Wow.
they say the reason why you're not manifesting, it takes you a long time because you're saying I am. You should replace it with I feel. I
Ooh.
feel is where your heart chakra is. I love, I believe, I understand,
Yeah.
I believe, I have, I choose. So instead of, so just kind of, like I said, it's just a juggle of words that you can bounce around, but it still works the same way, because as your mind, the more repetitive you keep telling your mind, becomes believable. That's how how Marissa Peer would explain it. Your mind is so almost like gullible, they'll believe the good and the negative. They don't know the difference.
Right.
What is imagined narrative and what is real.
Yeah, I remember Louise A talking about too that, and I heard her in an interview with audience Q&A type thing, and someone saying, I can't say I love you to myself in the mirror. I'm not quite there yet. And she suggested saying, I'm willing to learn how to love myself. So finding ways to make it your own and maybe taking it a little step at a time. I'm willing to learn how to be more powerful. I'm willing to ask for help on how to be more powerful. So sometimes we might need to take little bitty steps and make it in a way that feels most comfortable with where we are right now. If we feel broken and heartbroken and fearful, we do need to to sometimes just adjust it for where we're at too. That's good to be reminded of as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So yeah, just gotta keep continuing doing your work. Your inner work is truly about you. As we know, we only have the relationship with ourselves for the rest of our lives. No
Yeah.
one else is, right? We live in our head, so why not make it a good friend? Because you've heard your mind can really be your greatest enemies if you choose to, and imprison us for the rest of our life if we're not careful, and we dictate other media and outside culture and society to tell us what we should believe, and in all it's all about us, changing that perspective to us, to kind of have that self-reflection and
Yeah.
really change from within. Everything's from within. as
Yeah.
I as, I, as I've learned.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. And I continue to learn, and I continue to have challenges too that might come up. And we just keep going the best we can, you know.
So, Christy, before we wrap up here, can you share one of your greatest healing that works for you, and what type of experience you have with that, and hopefully can help someone else?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I love nature, and I just got this plant about a month ago because I live in the city, and but I find I take a lot of solitary walks and solitary hikes. And for me to get out in nature and just listen and to see and hear birds and the wind, as you know, I'm on technology a lot. I'm on my laptop a lot. And so it's become really, really, just really important to me. And I like to eat as naturally as possible too. So it's helped me to really just envelop nature. And again, in the city, just getting outside, just getting in the sun. And that's just been something that's really helped me a lot. Thank you for asking, Janice. Yeah, I love nature.
Do you also do the grounding where you're like barefoot?
I,
I
you
heard
know,
that.
to be honest, I don't do it as much as I ought to. However, when I had that injury last week, I made a point of going to the park and putting my feet on the grass without any shoes on, and I made a point of putting my leg on the grass too, because I definitely felt that it would help me from my little injury last week. So I don't do that as much as I ought to. But I have parks nearby. So it is something I ought to do, but it is incredibly powerful, and it's so simple. It doesn't cost anything. I think a lot of things that are the best things in life are free, and so we need to take advantage of that. And it doesn't cost anything to take off our shoes and put our I was going to say hands, but our feet and our hands, put our bodies on, if you happen to be near the beach, go put your feet in the sand, walk without sandals on, and just take advantage of all this free healing energy that we have accessible to us all the time.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Nature is the
Yeah.
best doctors.
Yeah.
That is actually one of the healing aspect, is you got to learn to connect to your body, connect
Mhm.
to your soul, whatever really uh, make you feel alive again. And it could be the simplest thing.
Mhm.
And Christy, I also want to share with you that breathing can be such a meditative state. People think like you gotta, sit down and do all this yoga poses. It's no. For
Mhm.
me, I find what healing for me, if I can share, is breath work.
Mhm.
Sometimes I can be bombarded like, oh my God, I have so many things to do. And all I had to do is just like breathe. Where am I in this moment? Let's take a deep breath. Let's just focus on one thing at a time, one task at a time, because that's how anxiety and everything that kind of bombarded our mind, right? It's through breath work and just kind of letting ourselves to be in this present moment, to maybe relax, or just not worry about anything. It's breathing. Once you keep focusing on the breath, it's like it just feel all your worries kind of getting taken away. That's what I noticed too.
Yeah. And breathing is also free. It's also free. It doesn't cost anything. And I agree 100% with what you said. And Yes.
Yeah, be grateful for all the when you wake up, you have your first breath, right? Okay, well, two more things about healing is learn to manage your emotions, as we talked about, right? Got to be aware of your emotions. It's not permanent; it just comes and goes like clouds. But you just got to be aware of it. This too shall pass, like that. Or whatever it is. And again, breath work kind of helps with that too. I think just kind of compose your manner and your state of mind. And then lastly, as we spoke about, no contact. Remove toxic people from your life, whether it's friends, whether it's family.
Yeah.
Especially, I would say, okay, maybe. All right. So real quick, before we end, some people cannot remove themselves from these toxic people.
Wow.
If you, let's just say, if you have a tie with children, right?
Yeah.
There are ways. I know it's hard because you see the negative part, and you don't want to rub out on your children. You want them to get away, and sometimes these people do need to go through court and so and so. But I think as a parent perspective, yeah, that might be a lot of work to do, but your children's mental health is at stake. You got to do whatever you can. Find ways. Don't make excuses. Ask a friend, ask a person. Somehow, some way, you're gonna get yourself out there. You just gotta, be, continue to progress and just fight for yourself and your children to be out of this thing, but out of this toxicity, with this person you're with. There's a way, and that you can get out. Don't you think, Christy?
Yeah. Yeah. And, you are setting an example for your children. And that's a tough situation because you might have that the father or the mother of those children. And it's, have to have incredible, like very, very distinct boundaries, and, make sure you have supportive people in your corner too, supportive friends. And so that you would want to make it so there's only one toxic person in your life. You don't want to continue to heal with yourself. But you have to for your children, and they will learn by your boundaries that you set with these people for sure.
Boundaries are a part of self-respect,
Mm-hmm.
by the way. All right, well, we're gonna wrap things up. This is such incredible talk, incredible important topics out there. I hope you guys out there find it informative. Maybe spread and share with others, your family and friends. Share and like and comment and help spread the words and help spread the community of I Am Powerful movement. Again, thank you, Christy, for being here and sharing your experience and knowledge. Any last word you want to say to the audience?
Just start where you're at. Just start with your healing process wherever you are, and know that besides Janice and I, there's so many resources, there's so many wonderful books, there's so many places to start and get connected, and that all is well, and that you can do this, that you can set your boundaries and protect yourself. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Well, all right. Thank you, Christy. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And until next time, we'll have another incredible journey of learning. So thank you for sharing and inspiring us, Christy.
Thank you,
Have a
Janice.
great day.
Okay.
Bye.